Greetings and salutations, everybody. I am back with another review here, another Shudder exclusive again, with The Call from 2020, starring Lin Shaye, who's from everything. I mean, seriously, look her up. She's been in everything. Tobin Bell, who we may know from Saw, Chester Rushing from Stranger Things, and Sloane Morgan Siegel from Gordon McGibbon's Life on Normal Street. And of course, a few other people in this as well, but those are the ones that stuck out. And this is one that wasn't even on my radar at all. I just saw an ad either on Twitter or Facebook, or maybe it was in the Shudder newsletter about The Call coming out. So I didn't really know anything about what it was about, which is, of course, how I prefer to go into movies. But I figured, Shudder hasn't let me down anytime recently, so I figured I'd give this one a try, and so why not? So, synopsis. Here we go. In the fall of 1987, a group of small-town friends must survive the night in the home of a sinister couple after a tragic accident brings them to the couple's door. Kind of light on that one, but let me give a little bit more detail, just pulling from, what we can see in the trailers, so we don't go into too much spoiler territory. So these kids were pranking the old woman, who was played by Lin Shaye. She passes away, and her husband, who's played by Tobin Bell, has a deal for these kids. So one at a time, if they go into this back room where there's a phone, they call a number that they're given, that's going to supposedly connect them with the old woman in the grave. So she's in her coffin, she'll be answering the phone, and all they need to do is just stay on the phone for 60 seconds, and then when they leave out that back door, they'll get $100,000. Sounds very easy, but of course there are some sinister spiritual happenings going on here, taking each character down a dark path through the recesses of their mind, reliving old traumas, or being confronted by some memories where maybe they weren't necessarily, being at their best. Leaving out some detail there because it was nice to have, no spoilers going into this one. There's a lot of nightmare-like flashbacks going on, and they really pull you in. So first things first, I was Lin baited with this one, as I call them, meaning yes, Lin Shaye is in it. And she has some really amazing scenes, particularly between her and Tobin Bell. Some really, really fine performances, very dramatic. But as the trailer says, and as the synopsis says, she passes away. So you only get audio from her after that via the phone conversations that are happening. So we actually get more out of Tobin Bell in this than we do from Lin Shaye, but still, it's it's an interesting little premise that they have, just trying to get through these phone calls, because the performances of these actors, everybody's done a really great job in this. So when I saw that Chester Rushing was in it, I didn't know his name, but I recognized him from Stranger Things. My first thought was, oh, it's that asshole from Stranger Things with all the freckles, because he did such a good job, in my opinion, in Stranger Things of really playing the bullying asshole that I just started to associate him as that. So it took a while. It took that first 15 minutes of the film for me to get used to him being the protagonist of this and not being that asshole. And of course, Sloane Morgan Siegel, who I absolutely loved in Gordon McGibbon's. I watched that years ago with my son. It was great to see him in this, especially because in this one his character is much more restrained and soft and quiet and very dorky and everything, and he really pulled it off well. But a little bit more leading up to what my rating is on this, which is a little bit complex how I came to it, was that I love the setting. I'm always a sucker for anything in the 80s, whether it's a movie from the 80s or if it's just set in the 80s. I love how they incorporate, in most cases, how they incorporate the fashion, the music. I like the limits on technology when it comes to horror in the 80s. There's nothing like watching a horror film and the whole time knowing they could just pull out their cell phone and solve whatever situation it is. I like having that technology cut off for things that take place in the 80s. These performances and pacing for everything was great. The story really pulled me in. I loved the mystery side of this, the mystery around this woman, around what this $100,000 challenge was all about. And a lot of those reveals about those backstories as they're delving into their mind was great. I mean, a lot comes out during that for each character as they take their turn answering that phone and trying to listen for that minute. There's 4 of them in total, so you go through each one of them, these really intense flashbacks, and really dive into like the depths of their brain a bit. But that's for all but the last 20 minutes. Up until that final 20 minutes of the movie, I was going to put this one at a solid A. I was enjoying everything about it. Everything was great. Then things just kind of taper off a bit. It kind of slows a little bit. but it wasn't really that as much that affected my rating as it was. There were a few simple things in this, challenges or obstacles that they just suddenly had a really quick way out of, something being explained a little bit too easily, like they were kind of rushing on those developments at the end, when those barriers and answers just kind of come out of nowhere, and they just kind of crash through in a way that just seems a little bit too simple. Plus the ending itself seems to kind of ramp up to something and then just boom, it's over. So much so that, I dropped this rating from an A down to about a C+. Yeah, it's a large drop there for me, all because of how they handled that last 20 minutes. Now, don't get me wrong, this is still a good film worth checking out. Just because, that first large chunk of it is excellent, and I was absolutely on board with everything, with the entire production. It was just that last 20 minutes that fell flat for me a bit, but not so flat that it's not worth checking out. So I'm definitely going to recommend it, even though I only give it a C+. You may pull something more from it than I did. So if you have Shudder, definitely recommend this one, even with its C+ rating, because those rushed simple resolutions toward the end are not enough to ruin this movie for me. It was just that last bit, couldn't get over that, dropped it down to C+. But anyways, there you have it. The Call from 2020, starring Lin Shaye, on Shudder currently. Go ahead and check it out. I give it a C+, and hope you enjoy it. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for sticking around to the end, and be sure to like and share this. And be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.